Hi everyone, I'm Duna. We're here at Mutant Watch the Mutants on Facebook and Twitter, and we have a special guest today, which is Rain from Carefree Black Nerd, Carefree Blair in Twitter and Facebook too. And well, hi, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm very excited. I'm very excited.
And we also have our usual members, Nick, there, Gabriel, and Brian. And we're all here to have another gender and sexuality in the X-Men show. And we hope you enjoy it a lot. Before we start the show, I want to give a couple of shout outs to different things. I want to give a shout out to the protests happening right now in all over the USA and in other places. And in that link that you have there, Black Lives Matters .car.co, you can support in different ways. You can go to a protest, you can see ways there to support protests. If you can't go, you can find information about things happening, information about how to do things safely and everything. So go there for support. And I think that's especially important now because we are in Pride Month. Today's apparently Pride Day, and there's nothing more pride than the protests happening right now in the streets. So that's it. And if somebody wants to add anything, or for members of this, mm, I
Yeah,
cover it.
As usual, you covered everything, Duna.
Okay,
it's true.
okay, okay. And the second shout out before we start the show is to a lot of things are happening in the comics community this week and last week. And I want to give a shout out and a personal we are here for you to survivors of sexual assault and harassment in comics industry. We are here, we are ready to listen to stories, ready to help in any ways we can. And I don't know, that's like my statement and our statement as an organization. So that's something also to support. And well, now that we're starting the show, we're gonna talk again about gender and sexuality in the X-Men. We have a marvelous guest who has a bunch of shows about different bunch of podcasts about different characters like Lynn or the Generation X team or other things that you should check at Carefree Black. And the first thing to start and to ask you everyone and get onto board with what we did in the last show is start with the runs that we love, with the stories and narratives that we love that include LGBT plus characters in the X-Men comics. And some that were talked the other day were Iceman here, and Leo Sastonis in X-Men, and the new Generation X run. And I remember it was a Stream X-Men also, an X-Force ecstatic whole thing. So I'm gonna ask whoever wants to go first for a story that they love about LGBT plus X-Men. So whoever wants to go first.
I guess I'll go. um, it's kind of difficult for me only because I haven't experienced many of them. I think Iceman has been the one that I can remember that was the most substantial, for lack of a better word. I really enjoyed Cena Grace's storytelling. At first, I thought I may have had an issue with the Iceman story, just because for me personally, I think I may have been projecting my own kind of insecurities about what that would mean for this character as a whole. Because we get a lot of people get upset when things change. They're upset at labels and whatnot. So I was very nervous about the Iceman series. Once actually started reading it and I saw how he was going through this kind of constantly having to come out, that clicked with me right away. I was like, okay, this is a story for me, because it's never ending. You may come out to your family, but then you meet a new group of friends, and you might not be the type of gay or come off as gay to them, or queer or whatever. So now it's having to come out again. And then let's say you move to another city, oh, it's coming out again. Even if you're in these queer spaces where they're safer, you still ultimately have to reach the rest of the world. So I really like the Iceman run, at least the first 5 or 6 issues or so.
Yeah, definitely. I think that Iceman run is like the one that always comes up a lot, and it's one that Comic Watch touched on a lot. Cody did a pretty great article on it that we always end up revisiting whenever the discussion comes up. Like eventually that article will make its way back around. And we had just talked about it, I think, a few days ago, and I had mentioned that it was like a Comic Watch classic, but it was really just its importance that comes from Iceman's importance in LGBTQ plus representation in X-Men comics. And I think it's something that it's just profound, and it's in 20, 30 years, it's still going to be that type of story where you can pinpoint it directly. And I think that's something we touched on in the mutant metaphor back in episode 1 of Mutant Watch. It was that level of importance and what the X-Men brings to the table in comics. And Iceman and that whole journey just gets right to the heart of that.
Also, two of the comics that came the other day were Iceman and The Astonishing X-Men run by Marjorie Liu were both very Iceman centered. Like both comics are very about that character, so it's like at least a lot of writers have come with very interesting and important stories about Iceman and about the whole thing that he's a gay man that also struggles with depression and with having come out very late in life, or not very, but like, because Marvel characters donate, so I don't know how later, but for us it seems later.
Yes.
I think for me, one of the ones that first pop into mind that is in recent time would be Hindsight with Generation X. But for me, I think the most important storyline was Iceman, the first run. I think it's going to be iconic because it's a true coming of age or exploring his sexuality and learning how he's going to now fit into his new life. And I think that no matter what age you are, for me, it was always completely relatable. So for me, that has to take the number one spot. Although, I mean, we also got to give it to Richter and Shatterstar, thank you, who had the first gay kiss ever in any comic. So it's a hard one, but for me, it's going to be Iceman.
So I struggle with finding like a story. There's certain issues that I find handle things really well. The one that pops out the most to me was actually not an X-Men comic, but a Young Avengers comic. And just Prodigy coming out, it was done in such a unique way. Not the actual coming out because he decided to make out with someone's boyfriend, but the conversation where he said the words "I'm bi," it really approached it from a way that was different because it tied in his powers to him realizing he was bisexual, how he was able to know anything that anyone around him knew, and how everything just clicked in his head to make for his realization that he was bi. As far as the series, though, I would say the Shatterstar solo that happened, just because even though queer representation in the X-Men is pretty minor, I feel like the bisexual representation is even less. So to have Shatterstar headlining where he has both his male love interest and a female love interest in the same title, I thought, and then just have it flow, I thought was pretty great.
I just I think just for the X-Men, like they have mistreated like LGBT plus characters or characters that are supposed are LGBT plus for so many time that is very like great. What we love about the X-Men run or the Star run is that it treats them well. Like for me, a very like thing about Driven Cena's Iceman was like I'm actually empathizing a lot with Iceman, and most times Iceman has showed that face we're not that empathetic with him, and I just love that. I just love that it's very like caring. I like I don't know how to explain that, but like I feel like that's something that people value in that one. Like it's very like close to life. I love that it's close to life, and not everything has to be like a very uh, life changing of the universe thing. And I love that. And I was actually gonna name one, but I forgot the name. So if anyone has something to say, I'm gonna search the name in a moment.
I don't know the exact issue, but there was also a good, just I think it was a standalone issue about a Knoll with North Star and Nightcrawler, and the way that they brought together the way his status as a mutant with a visible mutation and being gay and how they cross over, much like for a lot of people being queer and a person of color interacts in the way that someone who's just queer or someone who's just a person of color wouldn't be able to really get the same way.
Okay, the one I was remember is because I read today Nation X because it had a bunch of queer creators, at least like more than four. That is a lot for an X-Men comic. But like I read it today, and there was this little story about North Star that it was like a rom-com. It was North Star that Rain had problems with something technical. Okay, we're gonna keep this so until Ray can come back. Okay, so North Star had this like rom-com style thing that was like very like, well, I'm with my boyfriend here and I'm doing this thing and this other thing, and okay, we have Rain back. Okay, I'm gonna keep. Okay, so and it's like very funny and very like romantic style that is like very slice of life thing that I don't see that much in X-Men, and I think it could work very well. Like in Misters and Mrs. X, it works very well to mix up the like X-Men stuff with very rom-com funny life stuff. And I like that was a very short North Star story that was about him and his boyfriend being like, oh, but I don't like your mutant friends. And the other like, how can you say that? And the other like, they're flying and stuff. It was very funny. It was like, I don't know. I like that. I like that very to life style.
Yeah, definitely. The slice of life genre works so well with exploring sexuality issues. And because you get roped into the end of the universe thing, and it's kind of hard to navigate that, or it's a little bit more difficult. I'd love to see more slice of life stories. Like, give me a Wolverine slice of life story in Krakoa. Come on. And I'm still on that, by the way. Like,
Okay, one we talked about the other day, and also like I want to bring today also, is because of the thing Gabriel talked about visibly mutant people and queer people. It's very specific in Blink. Roxy, with is a character that Rain has done a podcast about, and I I loved how that part of the being visibly mutant and being a mutant that is non-passing and that has this experience with life that is shaped constantly by being a mutant in Roxy in the Generation X new run. But I feel like a lot of other things could be explored in Roxy and they haven't been explored that much. Like that was very explored in that run. That I'm non-passing mutant and she bonded with Chamber, and that was very beautiful. But I think they could have gone more into her character, more into her sexuality, more into race issues that they didn't go that much. So if anyone wants to add from there, maybe Rain, you have any?
Oh, I have thoughts. Yes, I'm very, very opinionated. I think my issue with Roxy is I love the representation there, but I personally don't feel like it's been done, like you said, as far as it could go. She is in the middle of so many different labels, so many different groups that to me it kind of feels it kind of fell a bit flat for me. Um, the parental part of it, her being a black character from a very specific type of family of people who are hip hop moguls, or they are people who I'll say for all intents and purposes, we'll say they're the Jay-Z and Beyonce of the Marvel universe, but we know nothing about these people. And I'm like, this to me, it never made like her mutant experience is fine, but to me, it never made sense that this girl who has this very rich life prior to becoming a mutant, just at teenage, then goes off to this school. I can accept the things that happened to her because this is an X-Men book, but it seemed like there was a disconnect from her former life. If Beyonce's daughter can fly, that's going to be a big deal. If Cameron Diaz's niece can shoot fire out her eyes, that's a big deal. And I feel like they're writing a good story, but when you, for whatever reason, make a backstory, to me it seemed kind of what is the word I'm looking for? It seemed as if it was just a like kind of a last minute thing. Like we have to give her some type of backstory. This is what it is because I haven't found any other explorations of her family life. Does she have siblings? Where exactly in the Marvel universe can we point to her father being on TV? So I feel like, especially with this social media age where music is a big deal, fandoms are a big deal, there's celebrity culture, she should be, I feel, a bit more prominent than she is just based off of her parents, not even getting to her mutant issues and abilities and everything that comes with that. So, like you, I feel like they could have went a bit further. I know you're juggling a large cast, so there's only so much you can do, but I wanted more. I want more.
You see, I agree with you when it comes to Bling, and when you go into detail about her background, the one that's popping into my head is you also have Hellion, who was introduced around roughly the same time, also from a very prominent family, and that has been such a crucial part of his story. And then for them to just drop the ball on Bling, it seems weird.
Yeah.
And even if like you said, like Jay-Z's daughter starts flying, either it's going to be a big deal, or the fact that it's not a big deal is going to be something. What did they do to make it not a big deal? And Bling's for me personally, Bling is one of those characters that I've always wanted to love, but always felt so two-dimensional, like they weren't putting the work in.
Yeah.
With the exception of the Generation X run, where at least we got something, like Raduna was saying, about the visual mutation, how badly she wants to be an X-Men, all of that was finally, okay, I can see you as a person, as opposed to just background character.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
I think that's something larger in X-Men comics too, the unwillingness to really go the extra mile, or maybe not even the extra mile, just what it should be, because they kind of tiptoe around a lot of issues. And Bling is a good representation of it, but it's really everywhere with a lot of different issues too. They try to let the mutant metaphor stand on its own, and you really need to kind of push it in this direction to really flesh it out. And it always feels like they never want to commit to it.
Yeah. Yes. God. Yes. Oh, yes.
It was something that I set out to do the Wolverine sexual exploration article, and I thought, there's got to be some concrete stuff here happening. And I read so much that was just dancing around it and hinting, and then not really following up on it. And then here's another hint that has nothing to do with the previous one, so it just complicates matters even more. Right. So it's so hard to even dive into, and when you look at it as a whole, it just kind of feels half-hearted.
Yeah.
And
I just related that to the fact that I was talking to Gabriel in our chat the other day, and I was like,
bring that up.
Of course, Blink and Mercury are girlfriends. Why wouldn't they be? And Gabriel was like, are you sure?
But are they? Are they really? Do we know that?
It was very funny because I was like, yeah, I have read that, I think. And then I was like going through bad issues and stuff, and I was like, no, I haven't read that. I just connected the dots because they haven't connected them from me. Because one author was like, well, they have this moment and they almost had some, but then nothing. And then in Generation X, the new run, we have them holding hands. That's the clue I was thinking. That's they are in the background holding hands, and that's all. and it's like weird because like I kind of felt like bad when I realized that I was putting the dots together because like I feel like before I realized or more like I suppose they were girlfriends, Blink's sexuality was only bring like this girl is hot like it's really such a I don't know, it's stereotypical. It's really like okay, but bring it other way. Okay, I'm fine with someone being like, oh, this girl is hot because I do that too, and I can believe it. But also, I don't believe this is all. And like, that's not all to it. There's a lot of other feelings that people have with being LGBT plus, with sexuality that are not just damn this girl is hot. And I feel like they really didn't go through that, and I wish they go through that. I wish that the visible mutant metaphor, okay, fine, but also so more about her background, about her identity, about her sexuality, that is a little less like this thing, and then you make your story. And no, I want to read this story.
Exactly. I think that's what it boils down to. Is it seems like the history of X-Men of Marvel, it's kind of trained the fans to accept these kind of like half hints and then have us connect the dots and have us just be okay with a headcanon as opposed to actually just putting it on the damn page. And I think that in 2020, put it on the page. We should have reached that point by now.
Definitely, and I think that's why we all kind of harped on Iceman right when the show started, because it's on the page.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, but also like Iceman is like the easiest put of representations. He's white, he's a gay man. It's like one of the easiest way to put it. Like I feel like with Blink they should have gone somewhere else that wasn't just like so stereotyped. Like I don't know. I just feel like it's like if you Google like famous black batches, it's like that. It's like they're trying to do that have as characterization, and I don't know.
I agree. Oh, I agree. Representation is the hill that I die on, and that you said it. It's I think for a lot of people, be they queer or whatever. I think when it comes to the mutants, the thing that has really bothered me is much like what we said, they haven't gone that extra mile. I don't think it's enough to have a character who, because they can shapeshift now, that is are stand-in for an actual trans person. I don't like that we have someone who, like, even Iceman, who's been around forever and a day. And I know you guys mentioned on the last episode, it wasn't necessarily a retcon because sexuality can change, and I 100% agree. But then look how long it got for any type of confirmation. But we could be in the middle battling at the Savage Land, and Rogue and Gambit can kiss all day long, and that's not a problem. But then Destiny and Mystique can't. You know, it's so I feel like for mutants to be a stand-in for civil rights issues and queer issues and the legacy virus with the AIDS virus and all these things, I feel like a lot of times companies try to hide behind maybe children, like, oh, this is for kids. Well, when I was a kid, we were reading some of the same stories. Emma Frost has been dressing that way ever since before I was born. So it pains me, and we turned out okay, you know. But it pains me that you have these stories, and it's you can go the extra mile with some things, or you can fully flesh out some things. But then when it gets to these stories or these characters that might make you a bit uncomfortable, you'll only go so much, like Gabriel said, to give us enough breadcrumbs to make it headcanon, but not explicitly on the page. My name is Tom. I'm a mutant and I'm in love with Jim. We are in love. We kiss. I also fight crime. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So I have a question that I kind of don't want to bring up about that. So we know what we want. Who do you think goes to the editors? Do we think that it's more of the editors who are like, no, we can't write it on page, or do we think it's the actual writers, or is it a combination of both?
So as to who stops it from happening or who tries to make it happen?
Either way,
Yeah.
I think the question is how. I mean, obviously, fans know what they want, and as we all know, X-Men fans are very vocal. So I guess the question is, who do we ultimately think is the one that's saying not to put it on paper?
Like, I think it's hard not to look at the history of editorial mandate and pinpoint any individual creative team or talent. This is something that has come from Marvel for decades now. So this is a brand identity issue, in my opinion, and this is something that I discovered it with Wolverine. It kind of doesn't matter how far back you go; you always find that approach, and to me, that is editorial mandate. And I assume some writers or some creative talents are trying to bring that to the table, and it gets mitigated in other ways. And that's kind of the feeling that I've gotten as I read a lot of X-Men comics. Is it spikes every now and then, and you can kind of point to that, and that helps your headcanon, but the editorial mandate kind of pushes that to the side, and you get a lot of stuff afterwards that it doesn't really follow up on.
I think the same, but I also think we did a list of we're not making it public because it's like a weird list, but like a list of LGBT plus I mean authors I don't know who have worked in X-Men. It's like very concrete. But maybe there's a way to put like the actual comics in somewhere, like these comics are the comics that have been written, but which sounds better. But anyway, like we did a list to check, and mostly because like I also wanted personally to have that list to like check if I have like certain thing, who has written it, because like well, when I look at the list, I think there's not that many LGBT plus out creators in the X-Men. So I don't know to which point this is editorial. I'm sure that in the cases that it's LGBT plus creators, either out or not out, it's 100% editorial, because like I feel like this has been talked about. Like I don't recall examples. Oh, okay, I have one. I had the example of Sina Grace wanting to do something more with Darkbait, and Marvel telling him no. And that part of the story is clearly editors, and it has been spoken about. So I'm sure if you heard a story by an LGBT plus creator that is almost LGBT plus, it's probably editors to some extent, but I'm not sure it's like the long run, because like in the long run we have a lot of straight creators, and you know, like for a long time, I'm thinking about the Uncanny X-Men part and like the old times. A lot of the subtextual things were just because there was, or not a lot, but like half of them were just like, this is hot. Like it was more of a how do I put this thing on the page so people are like, so for one.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. What I was going to say is also with the Uncanny X-Men, we also had to deal with the Comic Code Authority for so long, which whether it was writer or editors, that was pretty much an easy, hard stop on anything making it on the panel. And I'm with Duna where my gut is saying like, the editors are getting in the way because we've had concrete information, like what you said with Cena Grace and Dark Veil, of it not being able to get through. But to kind of give them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, particularly when it comes with some straight creators, that they might be trying to push a queer story that shouldn't be told, especially not by a straight author. And we spoke last week, I think, about, or last time, about Anole and how his initial storyline, he was supposed to kill himself because he wasn't accepted. And thankfully, an editor stepped out on that and was like, no, we're not doing it that way. So it might be a mix of both, that, either straight writers not trying to tell the right story, or editors stepping in and trying to be like, no, we're not ready for this story yet, even though we need the story.
Right.
I think that was an interesting combo. I will have some comments, and also like to move on to the next point. I'm gonna put some of the comments. Yes, because we can be talking about editors and creators for a long time, and probably later. Okay. We have some comments just like giving us love from Travis, who was in the last show, and also from Asta, who commented that Cena Grace Iceman was great, just giving the the thumbs up. And also like it would be good, in the comment it says that it would be good to have a list of those almost, or those subtext couples somewhere, because like it's also like information that is like whisper, something like that. And also we have another comment from Travis saying they miss Bling in the first issues, because was like more characterized, like simpler crashing on Fox and Rogue, hiding herself in the cult, like the things they miss about with this character was very soft at the beginning and it started being more later. So we got those comments, and I want to connect them with asking you all about something that we were already talking about, but more explicitly, which is like which characters you think are underused, which LGBT plus characters you think Marvel is not using enough. I know Blink is a good example, but it's also an example of use, but in other way. But also others that maybe they are not using enough.
Prodigy.
Yep.
And I do think that it's interesting that Prodigy, I think, is one of the only other, aside from Bling, of Black or queer mutants. And Prodigy, aside from being just background tech support, barely having lines, has not even appeared in an X-Men comic since he came out. All of his post-coming out real appearances where he had a role in the story have been Young Avengers or America Chavez. And that's it. And I feel like that's so much potential in them. And I also find it interesting that Prodigy is another character that I feel like they didn't bother giving enough depth to, that in his original appearances, he kind of flew under the radar for me as well, because I found him kind of boring, because I don't feel like they gave the attention they gave like Hellion and Surge and Elixir, etc.
I agree. I'll go with Hindsight. Where is he? where is he now? I know we're on Krakoa now, and this is a utopia, but where is he? I think a lot of times the younger mutants get created, and then once the title goes on to someone else or they get dispersed, they just fall between the cracks. I like to see more from Hindsight.
I'm kind of curious, and maybe I'm remembering this completely wrong, but wasn't Iceman and Pyro dating for a hot minute?
They weren't dating, but they had a bit of an arrangement where they would have some nighttime visitations.
Right. So, but that was before Hickman, right? Or was that?
Yes, that was pre-Hickman.
So since Hickman came aboard, we haven't heard anything about the two, right?
We haven't heard anything about the other Pyro since the first Pyro came back to life, or came back to X-Men titles. Simon Lasker has just vanished into the abyss of Marvel abyssness.
So that's where I feel like that's where my story is. Where did it go? I want to know more.
Very
now.
hot and cold. I mean, it was too easy. Huh?
Yeah.
That's fair.
It was an eventful night.
Yeah. No, I think Duna mentioned something about Mystique in the last episode being an exploration of the trans journey. And I don't know if that's something that even fits with this question, but I would love to see them double down on that and really use it as a catalyst to explore even just a 3 or 6 issue miniseries. Just get a quality team behind it and use it as something that is on the page, that is right there, and really flesh it out. And I would love to see that. I would be all over that book.
Same.
Yes. Also, I would love that because it would be like poetic justice to the. I said it in the other show, to the bad Mystique run that was all over trans issues, that had a villain that was kind of a girl in a men's body, something like that. It was very.
Yeah.
And it has a trans character, that a trans woman that appears in the run for like three pages, and it's like it's a very exploitative run. So I wish we had like a good run now, good solo Mystique run written by a trans writer that was like, yeah, that would be awesome. And also, I was thinking before when you started mentioning people and we were like Blin, Prodigy, I was thinking Dark Veil also falls into that. And it's like it's something that happens with Black queer characters a lot in Marvel. Like generally, they roost them off. They're like, "Oh, look at this very visible, very oppressed person," and well, they're out now, and it's like,
Well, Darkveil falling into obscurity so quickly drove me crazy.
Absolutely.
Because she was one of the rare examples where immediately she crossed over out of just the fandom and into the mainstream. So many people were talking about the first mutant drag queen, and she got 3 appearances, and then we never saw her again.
Yeah.
And like, I feel like just in a marketing sense, that is a weird choice to make.
I'll say my first interactions with Dark Veil, with Shade, was actually through cosplay. I didn't know this was a real character at that time, and so I got excited because there were like three different people who cosplayed as Dark Veil, and like to me, they did everything right costuming, but it looked like, oh, someone created their own character. Then I started seeing different panels popping up, and much like you, I'm like, where is the rest? The gay nightclub drag queen ballroom experience is such a large area that you could tap into. This could have been that entry character to give you another book that's just like doing numbers. A lot of X-Men fans are queer in some regard. Like that was so I'm with you. Like how do you drop the ball?
My first, I guess, introduction with Shade was, I believe, Daxclamation's Insta, the drag queen. And I really had no idea that was happening or was a reality. I was just like, that's really cool. Into the headcanon area, you know? I thought that's kind of what it was. And then by the time I realized that it was real, it had already ended.
Yes. I don't know. I feel like they also do this. I'm gonna like be very cruel to Marvel right now, but I feel like they also do this because like multiply oppressed people that are visibly oppressed are very like looking, like very like to look at them, to put them right there and like be like, oh, look at this, but not to like get deep into. And I feel like Marvel are taking the easy road to be like, hey, you have this character, it's very cool, and then let's rug it off because it's just for getting the first attention, because we don't wanna. They're like, we don't wanna get into the thing that is actually getting hired the creators that should be doing this character and that could do it right. And I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
And I will say I would rather them not tell the story than tell it wrong. But I think that it's very possible for them to tell the story right if they hire writers who have some personal connection to the story they're trying to tell.
Which is not difficult to do. You can't make me believe that you can throw a stone at Twitter and find 40 different people who have this lived-in experience, who either are aspiring writers have been writing for years, do screenplays, YA novels, fan fiction. You can't tell me that there's no way to find a black drag queen who loves X-Men comics, who lives in New York. You can't tell me that. It's. I don't think it's that difficult. And you put money behind what you deem as important. And the whole reason I started my own podcast was because I would watch the Marvel movies, I watch DC movies, and I'm seeing a very particular type of character who I always see in every book. Well, if Shade is in more books and get that popularity, then now there can be a black drag queen who can get that role in a movie, and now that's more money and more exposure. So I'm with you guys. Clearly, we're preaching to the choir here, but where it doesn't hurt to have a limited series, to have a 1 or 2, 3 different runs, and like it seems like. And before I get the rant, and I'm gonna rant it in, but it feels as if a lot of this is short-sighted on Marvel's part, where, like you said, it's performative. Here's this character. If you did nothing but keep Shade around long enough to get to Pride of the next year, you would have at least, I'd say, 7 or 8 issues with her in there, so that now it doesn't feel like I'm bringing this character out for Pride Month. You know? Yeah. Ooh, yeah.
And as far as getting writers who do identify as queer, the one piece I will give to Marvel about them doing better is with the new run is we do have 3 writers who are openly queer who are on the main titles. And I think that is a huge step in us getting that representation. Just unfortunately with COVID and everything else going on in the world, we haven't been able to see what actually makes it onto the panel when all of them are writing. So maybe there's a light at the end of the tunnel, but we don't know yet.
Fingers crossed.
Yes, I'm also very excited about the Children of the Atom comic that is gonna come, because I have high hopes that, having in mind what Vida has done in the past and what they have done in Supergirl, they have done in Livewire, they have done in multiple places. I feel like we're gonna get a trans character. I feel like if no editor gets in the way, we're gonna get it. Cause like, and also, it's great that we have a black trans creator being in the new X-Men book that introduces new characters. I really appreciate that. Like, of all the choices they could have made of putting different people in different books, I really like that Vida is in the new book, because those characters are the new characters that are gonna come to our fandom and to our life. And I really glad that they are not written by, because most of the characters that are new are mostly written by white men. Like, I'm thinking, I don't remember who was the creator, but I think I don't remember, but Dust was created by a white man. And it really shows in the characterization. And Dust, this character who is Muslim and is basically sand. And like, I wish that wasn't the case for new characters. Like, they always have been created by white men and then fixed by someone else. It's like that a lot of times, like a very dull story, and then someone comes like, okay, we gotta do something with this. But I don't know, I'm excited about that specific part of being like the creator of new characters.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to go back to it, but it does feel like the editorial mandate thing, and also with the performative stance on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's, here you go, and then that did not land at all. Now we got to kind of backtrack and figure out what's going on here. So I feel like I get a lot of that, but it's great. Like, sorry, I had to step out for a second, but I believe we were talking about Vida Ayala joining the X team. I'm part of the Valiant show, so I got to plug it. But Valiant pulled Vida Ayala to do Livewire, amazing stuff. They also have Magdalene Visaggio, who did the Dr. Mirage title. That I feel like Magdalene Visaggio could come right into the X team and immediately bring something cool. And maybe it's the Trans Mystique story. Maybe it's something like that I would like to see. But I feel like
we are one step from pitching to Marvel.
I'm going to formulate it in this show. But I mean,
hey, how many signs do we need?
Like, if I could just say, like, take another page out of Valiant's book, pull Magdalene Visaggio in, kind of expand that X team a little bit, and put this stuff on the page.
Yeah, I agree.
It needs to be on a shirt. I think Gabriel has a shirt idea with that. Just put it on the page.
Put it on the page.
Yes.
You can put legal text under it that says, you have to hire.
Right.
So people read it. I think I'm gonna turn my light on a moment, and it's because I always have this with the soap. It's late here. I'm in Spain.
Oh. We're kind of all over.
Yeah.
Well, so one thing that you guys were talking about is if Dark Veil had appeared in more panels, then they could have brought her out during Pride and have it not been performative. But the thing that really irks me is we didn't even get a performative shade appearance for Pride Month. Like, that's, again, easy money. Like, if you're gonna be performative, at least give it to us, and then we'll complain about it being performative, but we'll all buy it, and you'll make lots of money off of your one gay one shot. Just give me my gay one shot.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I think the reason they didn't do that is because they fired Sina Grace around that time. Like, I think the reason was like Sina was already having problems with them being like, no, you can write this story, you can write it. So he was just one like, fuck.
Yeah, and it also would have I completely forgot about that aspect of it, for them to let go of Cena and then bring back his character just for a performative one shot. That would be an extra level of just messed up.
Yeah.
It's weird that they can't even really commit to the performative stuff.
Yeah. God. But how hard is it to get another night, Dark Veil? There's tons of, but I'll leave it at that. It's nothing.
Missed opportunities.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm thinking maybe move to something more fun. Because we're gonna start being like, yes, they do it wrong, right. So I think it's the moment to put the fan casting thing, the idea that I have and that Rain loved, that it was like about bringing like a team, like let's do our LGBT plus, complete LGBT plus mutant team. If you have any one of them that you want to cast as LGBT because you see it, go ahead. Like you can cast Storm.
Okay.
Completely cast Storm, please.
If no one's going first, I can. I already have mine set up in my head. I want a kind of like a Young Mutant meets social activist team of all of these young X-Men that are underused. Bling, Morph, Hindsight, Anole, Greymalkin, which I always forget exist. Prodigy, maybe even finally bring Wiccan fully into the X-Men family, and I want Darkveil to lead it, because who better to lead queer youth in social activist experiences other than a queer Black mutant? Like, it writes itself. So that is my dream LGBTQ only team title.
Okay. I'm with that. I'm with that. I like it. I like it. Le- I had a lot. I had a lot of different iterations. For me, it came down to Dakin, Prodigy, Psylocke, yeah, Mystique, James Howlett, Ultimate Colossus, kind of like,
Yes.
and it would be more like an adventure, not necessarily Lord of the Rings, but some type of kind of what Xavier has done, getting his own group, but them going around getting different queer mutants, mainly because yeah, everybody's approached and everybody's invited to the mansion, but there's still that space where I feel like the mutants are lacking. They're not following through with a lot of the experiences. So if you get this group of raging in age from, I guess Prodigy's maybe like 15, 17, all the way up.
He's in college.
Okay, well, sure is. Yep, America. Yep, you're right. But getting a difference in ages, a difference in kind of experiences, so that at that point, instead of it just being this bald guy with his queer lover Magneto approaching you at your house, you have somewhat more of a what is it when everyone approached Kitty at the same time, trying to get her to their school, kind of more or less like more experiences to say, hey, you can shoot fire out your hands, you can do this, that, and the third, but you also have a space with us. More of a like a found family book that's kind of like the Professor X uh, admissions process, but just specifically for queer characters in their own realm, because that's a big thing. Your found family, your house, your friends, your other gay friends, your people who are accepting, halfway houses, whatever. So that's my pitch.
That's pretty cool, and both of them are probably way better than what I was. My train of thought went, I guess, the other direction. I want like an action-packed and super mask story with Beast, Logan, Hercules, Gambit, Deadpool, and super gay, and just really commit to it. Like bring all of these heavy mask characters together and don't pull any punches.
Yeah.
You know, like the opposite of what they do with Fast and Furious. Like, or that. Like nobody thinks to do stuff like that.
Mm.
That's like ultimate headcanon stuff. And if it's a fan cast, then that's what I'm going with.
I like it.
So when I was thinking about it, I didn't actually come up with a certain character or characters that I wanted to be in. I thought of more the idea of I would actually like one shots of each of the characters, and so to build up, so the writers have that time to kind of invest and create a story, and then from there go into the main titles and continue those stories. That's personally what I would like to see. I didn't think of like a certain type of character, but every one that you guys mentioned sounds perfect to me. So why not?
Like X-Men Black, but X-Men Rainbow.
The pictures keep coming.
I loved so much Gabriel and Rain ideas that I was like, now I'm not sure about mine. Like I love them so much. I love so much the idea about a found family thing. I loved it so much, and I love the young queer activists with their big living. I love them both. Like I want to see those books. Like someone write them already. But I wasn't very sure about mine. Because like I wasn't even sure about this question. I love what has come up of it, but personally I was like, what would I answer? But I think mine, picking up on what they're doing now, mine would be about Mystique founding a team of queer characters, based on the fact that what they're doing with her wife is unfair. and like getting other people to kind of emphasize with her. And then just to round it up and make something perfect, make something that deals with the trans mystic storyline and goes into her past, mirrored with what's happening now. And I would say like have 2 volumes, and at the end of first volume, Destiny is brought back, and then we have a volume with Destiny that explicitly is about them doing missions and touching each other all the time. Like I want to see at least one splash kiss per issue. Like that's a rule. That's for all these years of putting the heart and the shoulder.
I want Destiny to come back and there to be explicit, unique pet names that they have for each other. Like just pure lovey-dovey, makes you sick type of nonsense. I want that.
Same. After she whoop everybody's butt, I'm sick of them. But yeah.
And I didn't think about my team, but I think Daken would be a good fit for that story because he would easily be on Mystic Boards, and maybe Phantom X, and maybe that we're in it. Dark Veil, like put a bunch of characters that have been generally very marginalized in the geek canon, and be like, or that are very like I don't know, bitter.
Bring back Cluster for your title, Duna. Like she'd fit in perfectly, and no one knows what happened to her.
Okay, and Cluster. That's a really good idea. And we got another idea from one of the comments, which is lovely that we got an idea from the comments, and it's of Travis, and it's one that Travis kind of pitched to me the other day. It's very funny. It's called Chance for Love, and it's a story about Chance, which is an androgynous character from Fallen Angels that has, I think, never come back since the Fallen Angels of the 1987, the old Fallen Angels, and I think they have never come back from the bring it up never again. So it's Chance from Fallen Angels, Vivisector, and Kyle, Northstar's husband, offering romantic counseling on Kakoa. Some kind of mutant radio or podcast where they offer like they invite couples and they be like, you're terrible, and just like that.
I like that.
And Wolverine shows up wearing an eye patch. The comment is incredible. Shows up wearing an eye patch, okay, and posing as someone he's not, being like, I'm not Wolverine. I'm queer, but I'm not Wolverine, okay?
Wolverine is straight, but Patch might be a little bit queer.
I'm James Patch Howlett. I'm not Wolverine.
But I'm very interested in your podcast. That sounds like a coming out story, very great. Like instead of this whole like, I'm gonna talk with my parents, which is important, and I think was important that it was done in Iceman. But instead of this one, like very, like this is a coming out story where it's just Wolverine sewing with an iPad and being like, okay, this is my moment to shine.
Yes.
Okay, that was super fun. I don't know. That was super fun. And okay, to go to the next question and also like maybe connect with the things we talked in the past and maybe feed a little bit into what we have done now with the fan casting and I don't know, the whole like we proposing things. I want to talk about the own voices stuff in X-Men because it's a discussion that is going on lately about, yes, this thing about if you can hire creators that have that experience, why would not you do that? Like, especially because like, especially in comics, I think it makes even more sense because comics are in itself are a collaborative effort. So you will have a lot of people working on a lot of things. Like at least hire someone that has that experience in the team, and not only the colorist, please. And And I don't know, I feel like the way we can carry this, like to get into closer so and carry this into this conversation is both who would you want to see doing an X-Men story of unknown voices X-Men story, and how do you generally feel? Well, where areas do you feel this is important? Like, I don't know how to explain it, but like, I feel like an unknown voices thing is important in this because we haven't had it or something like that. I don't know, open question, but along those lines.
I don't really have anything right off the bat, but it is an important discussion just because we're going through it recently with voice actors stepping down, white voice actors stepping down from black characters. I think there's it seems like a collective coming to terms with it's really not the right approach to do these stories like that, and it seems like it's an opportunity as well for Marvel to really get ahead of things and do these stories with representation in the creative team. But the industry, as we've seen, has kind of, not to take a more dramatic turn, but it has really been reeling lately because of revelations and things that have come with gatekeeping that have stopped representation. And I think that's something that it takes us talking about them, and it takes us showing that, you know, these stories will do well if they're handled appropriately. And I don't know, if I gotta like make a concrete pitch, I guess it's time to bring Magdalene Visaggio in for a trans Mystique story. So let's make it happen, Marvel.
I am a huge advocate of own voices. I love it. It's one of my favorite things. And it's also a very big conversation in the like prose fiction writing world right now. And specific in regards to queer owned voices, it is a trickier topic than just, you know, race or religion or things like that, because we don't want to create an environment where, you know, creators have to out themselves in order to progress their career. So it is very tricky.
Yeah.
But that being said, I do feel like there are enough creators out there who are open and who are out and just haven't been given the opportunity to work for a big two publisher. I think that there are writers who work for the big two publishers who should be brought into the X-Men, and just haven't been yet. And I think that if we have those out voices there, then we would get more, I guess, more own voices stories that we don't know are own voices because the creators aren't open about it yet. But I think that by targeting those people who are out and bringing them onto the team, it would create a better environment. And my concrete pitch is going to be the same one I used last time, and that is, just for the love of God, Marvel, give me a Richter Shatterstar solo series written by Steve Orlando. That's all I want out of the world. Just give it to me.
Okay. For me, I'm not. This is something I battle with daily, weekly, yearly, monthly. I think that much to what you said, because that's something I didn't even consider, is that people may have to out them, or there may be a situation where they are outed. If we say explicitly queer people needs to write these characters, so that part I didn't even take into consideration. But with that in mind, I agree with everything else you said. I think it's very important to get people in these different lived-in experiences to write these characters. Even though this isn't directly X-Men, a Misty Knight, and even a Forge, where is a person who is differently able writing those characters? Because I can draw Forge's leg and Misty's arm all day long, but I don't know the personal lived-in experience that maybe it's difficult to, I don't know, open a certain door or going through a metal detector. I can use my imagination, but I don't have that lived-in experience. So I feel like there needs to be an onslaught of an introduction of queer characters. Specifically, I think we need to target trans creators, because out of not that there's a hierarchy of oppression, but with trans women, or trans lived the experience specifically, I just listened to a bit of a podcast, and it wasn't comic book related, but a lot of the things that the host said, they were just like pulling off the top of their head. When you could have Googled some of these issues or words or verbiage, and they didn't, which leads me to think that if the average person is not going to get it right. And so if you don't do anything but make a story and consult a panel of 12 different trans persons so that you can say, well, 7 said this, 3 said that, let me take the averages. There needs to be so much more put in place to make it so that these stories are told. Now, they might not always be good. And I think that's another thing that is very important, is that just because the story is handled by a person in that community doesn't mean it's going to be well received. And I'm fine with that. We have campy shows that people don't like, and we have great dramas that people love. There should be room to have the shade run that first 3 issues are terrible, the last 3 were okay, but then to get another one a year later that's phenomenal. I want those terrible books, because we can have a terrible Wolverine book, but he's never going to stop getting titles no matter what. So just because we might have a Mystique book that might fall flat for a couple issues, don't then say, well, we tried and now that's all we can do. But to kind of walk it back and answer your question, Prodigy, I want to see him as a black, male, queer person myself. I want to see his experiences. It may not be exactly like mine, but the nuances that I have from my childhood, from my family, from the TV shows I watch, let him drop a reference to Martin. Let him drop a reference to going to an HBCU. Give me something that makes it feel like, oh, this person gets it. So I don't have a creator in mind, but I know it needs to be who
Gets
someone,
it.
someone who's a fan, someone who gets it, someone who has some of that experience. So.
And they need to be allowed by the editors to express that. It's got to. It's almost not enough to get creators involved in this, because they're publishing it under the Marvel brand, and it's almost going to take a directive on the editor side as well. So maybe the representation needs to come in on the editor's angle as well.
Absolutely.
And yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know. I'm not big with names. I don't know who's editing at Marvel, but I feel like I'd be hard pressed to believe that there's not a queer editor they could hire to work on these queer books. So that way, there's no reason the entire creative team cannot be queer working on this queer title. So that way, they're working together to kind of form this story.
Yeah, definitely. There's so much more goes into the end result of these comics other than the writing and the illustration.
Absolutely.
There's so much more into it. So I think that is just as important of an aspect to consider in representation.
I have thought a couple of things of what you all say. I was listening and typing things and like trying to put my mind together to it. I think the editor's part is super important, and if you don't have an enough diverse team of editors, your story might look bad just because the editors might cut something like, oh, you have to cut this thing in this page, etc., etc. And like if you have a team of your editors that work on it, that have some of this life experience or can at least navigate them, it's better for the book, because the editor's role, as far as I understand it, is also to propose things of telling stories, to propose ways that those stories are going to be more effective, more reach to more people. So if their job is going to be like cut pages because they don't understand the issues, it's going to always downplay it. So I think the editor's part is important. And also, since most people don't know the editors that much, that's a thing that happens. Since most people don't know, I'm laughing because someone said to say, have you talked about Wolverine yet? And I was like, what? Okay, so so what I was thinking about is like, also in the way that Marvel works, getting more picking up some things that you all have said. in the way that Marvels work, Marvel doesn't get pitches directly. People can't apply to draw or write at Marvel. That doesn't happen. They go searching for it. It's the way they hire people. So I'm thinking about one of the comics that we referenced at the beginning, which was Leo's Astonished X-Men, has an issue that has a guest artist that is doing only part of a story. And I don't see why they do that a lot. They do certain artists to bring to maybe do something different for a little while or some pages. And I don't see why they don't search for example, for more trans women of color that are posting their art online. And even if you are like, oh, I don't know if to give her a book, where test it, give her an issue, give her something to illustrate, to write, hire her for a little project, and then go building on that. Because like people can just from one moment to another get experience. Getting experience in comics is difficult. So like if you, I think it's not hard to find trans women of color in Twitter, especially for people that are whose expertise is hiring people. Like maybe for me it's like more difficult because I don't know what hashtags or thing I have to go through. But for people that whose expertise is that, it's not hard, really. And I think what?
Well, like indie
I
comics.
said at least it shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be, yes.
Yeah.
And personally, for me, it's not that difficult at all to find unfollow artists and writers from all different experiences of oppression. It's not difficult. You just have to go through it sometime. It just takes some time of your day. So why wouldn't these people that are like pitching and reaching people from Marvel go and do these kind of things? I would love to see that because I don't mind if in a comic I love in some moment it changes the artist. In fact, I'm interested about that. I'm like, oh, why is that? Why or this annual, this miniseries, this little stuff. And I think that would be a good way to later get them more work and more work. Because to some point, it's unrealistic to think Marvel will from one day to the next go and hire a lot of creators from different spirits because they haven't done that.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I agree. You said something about different artwork in the Jessica Jones Max series when they did her flashbacks. It was a whole nother artist. Like there's ways to incorporate it into the book and make it make sense. And also to your point, Marvel is a gigantic company. There's no reason that you can't have an annual writers workshop where you target for these first 2 days only trans writers and creators. The next 2 differently able people. Like there's no reason you can't implement this and have them work. Get an anthology book out by all of these different people, and then decide who you want to maybe bring on to the next Iceman or the next Krakoan book or the next Avengers book. Like there's no excuse. You're a $1 billion company. There's no excuse. If me and you have talked online and you said, hey, would you like to come on to this show? And it was that simple, it shouldn't be that hard for Marvel. We're in different time zones. Like, I don't know.
It's true. And I love that you brought up the anthology because that's kind of exactly what I was going to mention. There's so many immediately available methods to go after this. Gabriel talked about like a Pride one-shot for Shade. If you're that worried about the business aspects of it, why couldn't it be a Pride anthology? Why couldn't you pack it full of creative talent like that and really flesh out your options and see what does well, what doesn't do well, and then, target that? And it takes 30 minutes on us on a podcast to figure out all of these different methods, and it's nothing.
Yeah, like you had said, we just recently got Voices of Color, which was absolutely amazing in my opinion, which was a one-shot which consisted of, I think it was like 1 to 4 page short stories completely written by people of color with legitimate research article essays that you could find online that talks about the role race has had on the comics.
Mhm.
I don't think there's any reason why Marvel can't do something like that, but with queer content creators.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Oof.
And Cody's leaving some pretty good comments.
Yes, the comments of Kobe are good. I'm gonna go through them. The first one is the editorial roles might be overemphasized in the match trend right now, and that's true. I was mostly talking about if you have a good editor, you get your story better. That if you have an editor that gets in the way, but it's not true that the editorial can do everything. And then Billion Dollar Company with some of the worst page ratings in the industry was another comment.
Mm.
And another comment which is very real is that if you're willing to be underpaid for your time and effort, they might be willing to listen. And that's a lot of Marvel. And yes, that's important because like one of the Kobe just commented good editor oxymoron. But like yeah, but that's important because like one of the problems with Marvel is that they underpay and they probably change rates depending on who they I'm not sure about that, but I'm sure that if you get rates about if you get like 3 pages in a comic of Marvel or something like that, it's like very nothing. It's like not getting paid actually.
Mm.
So I understand why people would go to other places that actually pay better.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I understand why they don't go to other that pay worse because like there's that. There's been a lot of revelations about Boom lately and about a lot of stuff about underpaying comic artists and writers, and that's also important because if you want to have that diversity in your comics that like X-Men supposedly are about diversity in some extent, you need to pay people well. That's like
Yeah.
because otherwise like if it's gonna be as bad as getting very like underpaid job anywhere else, but you also have to be creative, it's like wow. Okay, and we got another comment that is important and that we could touch on more in the future, that is that someone was very excited about talking about LGBT community and disability. And well,
Mhm.
that's a great one.
Mhm.
I can't wait to talk in this all about disability more because
Mhm.
like
And
I
I
listen
encourage
the
my family.
Mhm.
So, somehow it
oh
manages to be even less represented than queer people in
Yeah.
X-Men, which is I had actually thought that would be as low as we could get with representation, but
Right.
we don't have much in terms of disabilities.
Yeah. Yeah.
no, in fact I need to prepare if like for a disability, so I need to prepare way more because the examples are very like
Mhm.
in a certain
Very
issue of a comic. I,
Mhm.
I I'm in love with Gabriel talks about this one too much, so I'm gonna talk about this one now. New Excalibur, because in that one, in that one, there's a very, for my experience with disability and with hospitals and cancer tests and everything. I'm good now, but it was an experience that I had,
Mhm.
and that experience, mine, I really related to Nocturne in that book. And
Mm.
I really wish that Nocturne also was a queer character because her story is very much about both how she relates to having been in a situation of, well, cerebral paralysis and all that stuff, and also how she navigates the world knowing that people know that she's a mutant because she's also a
Mm.
visible mutant, and it's like I can't be safe in the public space, just, and that really hits the disability note.
Mm.
So I don't know why I just went in this rant about Nocturne, but I wish it
Mhm.
was more prominent in Marvel books.
Another episode. We'll have
Another episode.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Tune in for that. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm also glad that Rain brought that disability stuff to
Mhm.
this because I feel like we need to see more queer disability X-Men,
Mhm.
disabled X-Men.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, that's the one thing that's bothered me about the X-Men for the longest. When I was a kid, I loved them. I was away for maybe 12, 13 years for comics, and I came back right around House of M. But the fact that now at Krakoa we have Charles Xavier who is freely just walking around, and we've gotten that before, of course, but I feel like you use a big part of a lot of people's identity as like a punishment, or you're using it as something to get over when it's not. I would much rather see one of the most powerful telepaths in the world having this particular part of their identity and having to find a way to work around it or work with it or work through it in a story where yeah, you might have to have people who can fly like Rogue and who are strong fly you around, but I'd much rather see that than all of a sudden, hey, now I'm walking again, and even going to the disabilities themselves or the differently abled issues themselves. How did you get to this point? What does this mean for you psychologically? Like we can rebirth you into a 25-year-old body, sure, but mentally, what's going on there? And I don't even like with schizophrenia and with mental dis. I don't want to see them used as this is something that happened to a bad person or this person we have to fix them of this thing or I don't like that. I don't like it. I don't like that. Man, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the fact that they haven't had the conversation of identity versus physical limitations,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that even just a 3-panel conversation
Mm-hmm.
where Karma discusses whether or not she's going to be reborn with a full leg, I
Mm-hmm.
think that even just a discussion of it, something to show that they have given it thought,
Yeah.
I think that is something that needs to happen.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Just about Karma, she was very great in the Leo Sastonis X-Men run. She didn't get any like queer representation there, which I think Marjorie Leo was gonna do, but
Mm-hmm.
couldn't finally. But that which is sad. But but I think it was great that for Karma it wasn't so much of a drama. I think it was great that it wasn't posed as a drama. That
Mm-hmm.
she's just she's an amputee, but that's not a drama. That's not something that crosses her life as a drama. It's something that is part of
Mm-hmm.
her daily life, and I think it's very beautiful. In one, I think it's the 52, just after the North Star wedding. There is
Mm-hmm.
just after that. I think at the end of this issue, she's talking to Wolverine, and they're talking about the emotional impact of a lot of the stuff that happens to them, which is great, which also touches into mental health, which is a big part of Karma, even if people don't bring out that much. And she's just like changing her artificial legs stuff, like getting it together and talking to him and being like, well, like I'm still here. Like I survived all this and I'm still here and I'm gonna deal with this. Which in that moment was that her sister died. Was
Mm-hmm.
another different thing, but it was great to see it all represented. To not have karma like putting into different perspectives and throw away these perspectives, but to have all of karma there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely enough discussions and content for us to just dedicate a whole episode to disabilities in the X-Men comics, so that way we can give it the justice of a conversation it deserves.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Man.
Okay, we got a bunch of other comments, and I'm gonna go through them. They're about different topics, but I'm gonna go through them. Uh, okay. Um, there's I think Nick's family, Christine Osborne, talks
My aunt.
about talks about that she has both in her family that I suppose this is talking about mental health disabilities or brain disabilities and opposed to physical disabilities. I don't know. Uh, 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 uh. Yes, that she would love to see her children see disabilities openly talk about. and seen on their favorite shows, like something that shows in animated shows for children or something like that. That would be great. And also a good reason to call for animated X-Men to go back. And boom, boom. Yes, and she also has a transition in niece that would be happy to not see that, to not seen as an outcast, which I think is a great point of a lot of things that we're bringing here about own voices and talking about which is important about these characters right is that people that are like, I was 14 when I started getting into X-Men comics, like get positive message, like these comics, even if we read them, a lot of their public is young people, so like have that in mind for having a positive message.
Right.
And well, the rest are about Xavier's disability having to be addressed urgently, which is what Rain talked about, the same thing, that this needs to be addressed somehow. And yeah, most of these comments are how we need to do a disability in X-Men so sometime. To sum it up.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we're close to closing this. I had a lot of fun. I didn't realize that we're almost at 1 hour and a half. I didn't realize. I swear to you, I didn't realize. So I was like attention and everything. So like, I guess what we can like sum up some way what we hope for the future of the X-Men, each of us. So like we have like some closure of it. So if you want some, I hope this or this other thing.
If there's anything that I've taken out of these past two shows and doing a lot of research, it's that there's a level of commitment that needs to happen. And I think that's what a lot of discussions have boiled down to, that they've kind of tiptoed around certain things. They really haven't gone all the way. Like, let's see commitment in the future in a way that is instantly recognizable. It's on the page. It's not something that is left to headcanon.
True.
No, I totally agree with that. For me personally, I just want to see more representation of everybody. Because I think that we get like a glimmer of it and then it's taken away. We get a little hope and then it's that. No, like just put it out there. Like stop trying to sugarcoat it, so to speak.
I think that we need, like Nick was saying, I think we need it more on the panel. We need the representation. We need it concrete. But I also think we need more intersectionality, where it's queer identity, mutant identity, disability, person of color, religion, etc., and how they interact. And also, on the off chance that anyone from Marvel watches this, they have full permission to steal any ideas I brought up, as long as I get that Richter Shatterstar series going on.
Nice.
Money for you taking my own ideas. Like, I'll go buy the book.
I would say, piggybacking off everybody, I think everything you guys said is very important. The commitment, the follow through, the different intersectionality, all of that. In addition to that, I want for this Marvel machine to be behind these characters and not just the comic division. I want to see Shade in a movie. I want to see, that's not X-Men, I want to see Miles Morales live action. I want to see Kamala Khan. I want to see these characters handled and cast in these roles that best suit them on screen, so that my nieces and nephews can get the excitement from this next few waves of movies and comics that I did watching the animated series as a kid. So I want the whole Marvel machine behind it, and just kind of as a selfish thing, I want an amalgam Pride comic where we have DC gay characters and queer characters at like a Pride event. That's what I want. That's what I want. Yes.
And Patch's Wolverine will show up.
Yes. Oh,
Okay, so It was amazing. I think what I want from the future is that now that we're having this very rough moment in the industry with these things that are happening and they're bringing out to light more than happening,
Mhm.
I want that to be a catalyst for real change. That if these things happen, it's also because the industry is working too much on friendship and
Mhm.
like chit chat thing. And I want to see people get seriously that we need to change how things work on the personal level, on the level of the relationship between people, and also to make it more professional, I think, and also on the level of we need to bring stories that are relevant so these things are less in our culture, in comics culture, in X-Men culture. So that's what I want from the future. I want to see if this really supposes a shift in vision of some people. And I wish that would fall on the X-Men department just because I personally love these characters since I was very little, since I was when I was 10. I just want that personally. But I feel like this should happen everywhere. So like that's my final thing. And thank you all so much for coming. And thank you, Rain, for coming. And you can follow
Thank you.
you, you can follow Rain on Carefree Blair and on Facebook Carefree Black Nerd.
Mhm.
And you can follow us on Watching Mutants on both Twitter and Facebook. And go to Comic Watch to read about some this stuff. And I think that's it. And thank you everyone for watching.
Bye.